Yeah, right. Have you ran into some tech problems
All
before?
right. I think it's saying we're live. I think it's saying we're live. I'm going to check the channel to see if we're live. Let's see. What I'll have to do is bring up the YouTube feed on another screen. Are we live? This is Mark here with Clayton Olson. I think we're live. I'm just trying to get the feed sorted out and see if we can ensure that we are. Let's see. Videos. There's always techie issues the first time you do this, so if you can see us now, let us know. We're 5 minutes early, which I'm pretty proud of. Okay, so it's saying we're live there. So I'm just making sure that we've got the actual YouTube version that's being shared as well. Not as of yet. Let's go live streaming. See if we're there. Live streaming. Oh, yeah, we've got oh, here we go. I've got to click something in here, I think. Oh, we're unlisted. That's the issue. Okay, so let's put in the people and blogs. Let's go public. And we've got the little live chat over here. So hopefully...
Yeah, will I be able to see people chatting, or is that going to be only on your side?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll send you this. Yeah, that might actually be a challenge.
You know, it's all good, man. I mean, you can whatever it is.
We can switch to streams as we go.
Yeah, or you can just drive, man. I mean, and just kind of let me know where you want to go from here, and I'll just kind of jump in here and there if there's questions you see that. Yeah,
we'll make it work. Yeah. Now, I just want to make sure that this is all actually Ask Mark Live featuring Clayton Olson. It says we've got one watching now. I think that means we're live. Say hi if you can see us. We're setting up these double live streams, and they can be a little bit tricky to get going, as you can imagine. So say hi if you're on. Stream health. I'm really hoping this is all done right. Let's double check another window. Mark Rosenfeld. Oh, it looks like we're live. There we go. Oh, love it. We are live. Welcome.
Beautiful.
Welcome to the live stream. It is Mark Rosenfeld here from Make 'Em Yours, and I'm so lucky and blessed to have Clayton Olson joining me today. So thank you for joining me, Clayton. And, you know, I have so much respect for Clayton's content, and I wouldn't ask anyone to come join me on this channel for Ask Mark if I didn't really believe they had an enormous amount to contribute. So it's great to have you on here, Clayton. Guys, let me know if you can see and hear us. I believe that the way this is set up is I've got the chat, and sadly it appears Clayton does not, because of the weird double live stream, and we're only running it from one account at a time. I think Clayton might be missing out on the chat. So if you have missed something, I will be translating the comments through to him, and then when we do it on his channel, it'll be the other way around. So that's all going to work well. Clayton, great to have you on here.
Dude, I'm honored. Thank you for the introduction, and the respect is absolutely mutual, man. You're one of the guys on YouTube that I love to see your videos, and definitely somebody that I hold in high regard.
Thank you. It's great to have you on here. We've got who have we got watching now? I'm just going to flick over to there. We've got Opacity online. So Opa Delity is online. We've got Rebecca online. Says hi. We've got Samantha B. Says wow, guys, amazing duo. So yeah, great to have you on here. We will give it a couple of minutes just to roll and get started. If you do have questions before we get into the main question, let us know. It's been a bit of a tech nightmare setting this up, but I think we're here now. Diane's online. Diane says hello. It's nice to watch this.
Hey, Diane.
Any early questions? If you have an early question, pop it through. We're going to let a couple of people log in before we get fully started on the main questions. Clayton, how's your day been, mate?
It's been full. You know, I'm here in the States, so it's 7:00 p.m. and I've been working all day.
This job, when you do this job from Australia, it gets you good at time zones. Yes. You have to really think.
I can imagine. Yeah. Do you have a lot of your audience in Australia mainly, or is it a A lot in the
Probably
United
more
States?
overseas, actually. It's
Okay.
probably clients are maybe 70-30 overseas.
Got it.
So, yeah,
Very
and
nice.
the majority are interstate, so it's virtually all Skype now. There's a few locals, but not many. It's mostly
Yeah.
interstate. Most of yours US?
Yeah, mainly US. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think maybe some in the UK too and some in Australia, but mainly US.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah.
We've got Arctana online, says happy to see you both. Guys, let us know that the feed is coming through okay. So let us know that, you can see and hear and everything. And don't be afraid to ask your question, pipe up. Again, I'm just going to shift this chat window over to here if I can. No, it's not going to let me do that. I've got the chat window on my end, so I have to relay questions to Clayton. So I've got about 15 of you watching at the moment, so it's great to have you on here. We're starting to get people just rolling in now. Keep your questions coming. Rebecca says I can see and hear fine. Brilliant.
Beautiful.
This is a bit of a marvel of coming together a double YouTube live. They're not easy to pull off, so I'm glad, and we're on time. We're on time. That's
And
phenomenal.
we're on the opposite sides of the planets pulling this off. This is pretty unreal.
That's pretty impressive, isn't
Yeah.
it? That's
10
pretty
years ago,
cool.
this was not possible.
That's yes.
Yeah.
Wait, 3 years ago? This
Maybe
probably
3
wasn't
years.
possible.
Yeah.
They're really hard to do.
Yeah.
Diane has a lot of questions. Diane says, I have a lot of questions, but the last 6 months have been really hard to even seek out help for my relationship and everything else that's been going on at my end. I'm sorry to hear your struggles, Diane. If you do, or if any of you out there do have, a simple, fairly specific question, we can get into that before we get started on the stream. We'll give it about 2 more minutes, and then I think we'll get into the main questions. Clayton, do you want to introduce the 2 questions that we're talking about today? They're really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, I might need you to add a little bit of context to them, but essentially we're going to be talking about how to handle and what to do if you're dating somebody with depression, both in the beginning stages, if you're dating somebody and you notice that they have depression. And also, I'll probably be adding a little bit more of my 2 cents in on what to do if you're in a relationship with a man that has depression and that depression just starts to come up. How do you handle that?
I'm really excited to hear your take on this. Really excited because this is a really strong area for you. This is something you're really good at.
It is. Yeah. And I've been thinking a lot about it, so I am excited to share. We're also going to be talking about insecurity versus intuition. And Mark, when you sent this question over, it was funny. Just the other night we were brainstorming, and I couldn't believe how amazing of a question this is.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
how to
tell it hasn't come up before.
Right. Yeah. How to tell the difference between insecurity and intuition, right? Like if you're in a dating situation with somebody, is it because you feel insecure that something's happening, or is it your intuition, and should you trust it? Oh no. Oops. Oh, what happened there? Hmm. What the fuck just happened there? I'm back.
Can you
Are
hear
you
me?
there? I can, yes.
Okay. Does this mean I think we are? I think we're back to live. I'm gonna have to see on the YouTube. Do you know what happened then?
I don't, but I'm looking at your chat and it looks like people could see me, but they couldn't see you.
So it must be on my end. Okay. I have no idea. I didn't
Yeah.
lose internet
You know
or
what's
anything.
hilarious is that we just as soon as we start talking about how amazing technology is, this is what goes on.
We brought this on ourselves.
I'm not gonna say anything about it anymore.
Okay, let's try. Okay, it's saying we're 13:10, so I might be back on.
Cool.
Am I? We see both now. We're actually back on the same stream. That
Amazing.
Public. That's phenomenal. Okay, so you guys can see and hear me again. I really hope that doesn't happen again because I can't actually explain what happened then. I didn't lose internet, but obviously it was my end. So let's cross our fingers that that doesn't go again. So Clayton, you were talking about the second question: intuition versus insecurities.
Yes, intuition versus insecurities. I just love this question. It's amazing because it's something that I think a lot of people struggle with, including myself. That is this real internal battle, right? It's an internal, and whether it's a battle or just a question, is what I'm seeing, is it real? Or is it something that is an insecurity within me, right? Am I actually picking up on something, or is this just some story that's coming up about
this
me?
My own shit? Is this something I've got to deal with?
You got it, exactly. So I'm really excited to dive into that and unwrap it.
We've got some great comments. We've got Diane's back online. Samantha says we can see you both again. Arctana's here. Gadella's online. Arctana's got a big question there. So I'm going to read out Sonja's question and let's get into this. So Sonja says, it's 3:20 a.m. It's 3:10 a.m. where Sonja is right now. So unfortunately, Sonja's probably not on the stream. But Sonja says, "Hi Mark, really enjoying your channel." Oops, dropped my pen. A few weeks ago, I posted a question about a casual relationship. This made me think of another question. This guy has been super charming and came across as very, very confident. He put a lot of time and effort into me, but there was this feeling that something was off. Probably from the beginning, and now I think this feeling has made me worry about the relationship being only sexual. At the time, I thought it was just fear and insecurities, But later on, he started displaying some strange behavior. He started asking me if I was seeing other people. He was commenting on other women he found gorgeous a little too much. I noticed that he put me down with small comments in a situation where I disagreed with him. And the last date, he made a comment to me that he would easily find someone else if things didn't work out. Sonja said I broke it off with him after that. I now see that my intuition was trying to tell me something from the very beginning. I almost always have this, but I often dismiss it as fear because I know it's hard to put your finger on something like this when you don't know a person. And of course, I don't want to judge people based on a vague feeling. How can you tell the difference in dating and new relationships between healthy intuition or fear and insecurities? Great question. Great question.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to kick things off, Clayton? Do you want to kick things off with a couple of thoughts?
I could. Yeah, absolutely. And we can just kind of go back and forth if something I'm saying that connects. Yeah. Okay. So, God, what a great question. And so the idea
isn't it just, how have we not answered this question before? How have we not dealt with this problem before?
You could create an entire course on this, deciphering insecurity versus intuition. Yeah. So a couple things here that I've been thinking about in regards to this question is that, and I look at my own life, and I've noticed times when I've been insecure in the past versus times that I've had intuitive hits. And what I've noticed for myself personally is that the way that I can tell something is a insecurity rather than an intuition is that there's something about the fear that actually feels familiar, meaning that it's actually based in the past, that there's some type of story, something that perhaps is something that's happened to me in the past, and suddenly there's almost this little voice that comes up that says, oh, here we go again. And
this is if it's an insecurity?
This is if it's an insecurity.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, if it's an insecurity, it's because there's something from the past. There's a judgment that I've made about myself. There's a judgment, a criticism that I have about myself that the situation is beginning to tickle. It's tickling something within me and causing me to question myself. And because the focus is not actually out there, but rather on me, I can see that it's actually an insecurity. So the key things are, is one, it's coming from the past. It seems like there's a familiar feel to it. And two, there's a specific judgment usually married to the feeling about myself. There's a criticism that is married to whatever I'm feeling about myself, about my own value, about my own competence. And that's how I know that I might be looking through the lens of insecurity, where an intuition for me is where I feel completely present and online, and I'm not actually questioning whether I'm okay or not. I'm not actually questioning whether or not I'm seeing things clearly or whether there's a problem with my value, but rather there's almost like a slowing down that occurs. And I'm able to look out from my eyes, and I'm able to be solid in the moment and kind of see out and say, oh, wow, there's something that's going on here, and it's not quite, there's something not quite right. Yeah.
It's not adding up. Yeah, so it's more sort of, you're more kind of present and outside of your head with an intuition, whereas with an insecurity, you're more in your own head and you're relating it back to a past event or something about a judgment about yourself.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah. I've always found, this is sort of one thing I use to help women a lot, is that insecurities tend to come in big, hard waves, and they tend to promote sudden action to relieve them. Whereas if you think of acute versus chronic, intuition is more chronic and grumbly. It's like insecurity, and I'll use sort of an example from my own life. I remember a time I felt insecurity, and it was when a former partner of mine was going away. She was going on a camping trip for a few days, and I knew she'd be sleeping in a tent of a guy that really liked her. That kind of has that big wave. It's kind of like, whoa, what's this? I trust my partner, and then there's like this funny feeling of like, oh, there's this guy who's going to be sleeping in a tent that really likes her. That was just a wave of insecurity. And I was able to go, no, that's just insecurity. She's not going to act on it, and figure that out with myself. That was my own thing. Whereas intuition is much more grumbly. It kind of grumbles along, and there's no sudden urge to, oh, I have to use this. I have to stop him seeing her, or I have to act quickly to make sure that he doesn't meet someone else, or I have to start a big fight over this. There's not usually big waves of anything. with intuition. It's much more just this constant grumbly feeling. And I remember dating one woman some time ago, and things with her they never quite added up. And I realized it was my intuition speaking to me from the beginning. Things like when we'd be together, it would be fantastic. And I'd always go, yep, no reason to doubt this. But the inconsistencies when we weren't, just weren't adding up. She'd say one thing, do another, take inordinate amount of times to get back to me. And nothing ever just quite added up with her. And then by the end of it, it shouldn't have really surprised me. 2-3 months later, boom, disappears in a weekend. Yeah. And my intuition was telling me something that whole time with this grumbling. There was never a sudden urge to act, and never a sudden event that led to the insecurity. It was a slow, grumbling, chronic kind of urge.
I love that. I love the idea of one being an intense wave and one just being a kind of a grumbling intuition. I can totally relate to that. And to your point, what it also sounds like is happening is that a insecurity will actually trigger you to possibly go into fight or flight. To where suddenly you move into this place of like just reacting rather than acting intentionally. Exactly. Yeah. Where intuition will typically not trigger you into a place of suddenly needing to defend yourself. You might, for me, intuition is married to curiosity. There's almost like I just get more curious. I get more present with what's going on. I begin to observe more and watch more. And I'm not necessarily questioning. My heart's not racing. I'm not emotionally triggered.
Yeah. It's just that funny feeling like this just doesn't feel quite right. Like what is this? And Sonja's was a great example. She said from the start, it just didn't feel quite right. She said stuff wasn't quite adding up the whole time. She didn't have a sudden burst of like anger or flare up or defensiveness. You were saying yesterday, which I thought was a really good point, insecurities. It's like you almost can't see what's in front of your face. You just want to act and you just want to do something to break the anxiety. Yeah. Whereas intuition, you're almost more aware. You're almost sort of hyper aware of what's going on and just going, this just doesn't. Intuition, you're just kind of hyper aware and going, this just doesn't feel right. What is going on here? It's much more subtle.
Yes. And something you brought up yesterday that I don't think we've mentioned yet that I really liked is that intuition, the source of intuition is typically not going to come from up here. That it's going to be below here, down in your heart, down in your gut area, where insecurity is almost like this running story or thoughts. I thought that was a really good point.
It's much more in your own head. You're more insecurity, you're much more in your own head. Intuition, it kind of feels from your body. Yeah. So if you're watching this, we've got a couple of comments. Samantha says, big wave versus long grumble. Thanks, Mark. Fonda's online, says, how do you put a player in his place? We can see if we can get to that question towards the end, Fonda. Definitely. It comes from your body. That was something we were talking about. Present versus past was something that you were saying yesterday and a little bit earlier on in the video as well. Yeah. When you're feeling the intuition, you're very present and you're kind of just observing, whereas insecurities are more, as you said, related back to the past.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always noticed there's something familiar about an insecurity that comes up where it's like, oh, this thing's being tickled in me again. I'm not feeling good enough, or I'm not feeling secure. And often when that insecurity comes, it's actually a sign for me to take a step back and regulate myself. And when there's an intuitive hit, sometimes it's a sign for me to kind of step in and get more information.
Yeah, intuition kind of leads to curiosity and healthy curiosity, where you become hyper aware and you just go, okay, what's kind of going on here? And you just you sort of feel it and you realize that stuff isn't quite adding up. It's just. And this is something that you as a woman as well, you have more mirror neurons in your brain than the average man. You're going to be better able to pick up on signs. And it's really important that you do learn this art of telling the difference, where you go, hey, I can trust my intuition. It's there for a reason. What this guy is saying is not adding up. Just in the same way, in my example, this girl's actions, they just weren't matching up with her. The way she was in person just wasn't matching up. It just wasn't congruent. And that's where that intuition comes from. I feel like I have a pretty good intuition, but it's not going to be as good as the average woman who has those mirror neurons, who can sense that. And really, I'd really encourage you to learn to trust that intuition and go, this doesn't feel right. I'm just going to get more information here. As Clayton says, I'm going to get curious about this. Insecurity, as you said, is much more blinding. It's like, okay, I've got to act now. I've got to do something. He's going to leave me for her, or there's this jealous thing going on, and it's blinding. You don't get curious. You just get, I think, flight or flight. Flight or flight was the best way. The best way you described it. I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah,
perfect.
And I think, just to your point about women having better intuition, I think another thing to continue to develop that, if you feel like you're on the fence of questioning whether you've got insecurity or intuition, and you're in a dating scenario, it's a sign to slow down. The faster that you're trying to move, the faster that you're trying to come to some type of solution or get an answer to something, it actually stops you from seeing the big picture. So the more that you can almost just slow down, continue to breathe deep, and allow yourself to relax in the situation, your intuition will come back online.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes taking no action is the best action, and the wait and see. A lot of women will come to me and they say, I need to know this guy's intentions now. He's hot and cold and he's doing something, or he's done this one action then another. And often the solution is 2 weeks and reassess. It's wait and see. It's, what do his actions do? What do they add up to? And if your intuition is telling you something is off, then that's when, it's a little red flag waving in the breeze there, and you want to say, okay, I'm going to take another 2 weeks, 4 weeks, assess this guy, see what's going on. One thing, Fonda had a question about players, and one thing that players really struggle with is consistency over time. Is they can make up lies, and they can mislead you, and they can say all these amazing things, for a week, maybe 2. But if they try and keep that game up for months, it falls apart. Holes get poked in it. Your intuition will kick in, and you'll know something isn't right. And a lot of the times, if you're worried, you are being played by a guy, one of the best things is to just don't commit to him. Just wait and see, give it a month, give it a couple of months, and see what his actions add up to.
Love that.
Good stuff. Anything else to add to that, Clayton? So we've talked about being one kind of coming from the past and being a judgment of your sort of ringing bells from the past and being a judgment of yourself, versus one is more outward focused.
Yep.
Intuition is more outward focused, and it's more a judgment about others and his behavior rather than a judgment about yourself. We talked about insecurities tend to promote fight or flight, whereas intuition tends to promote more curiosity.
Yep.
We talked about in your body versus in your mind.
Yeah.
Intuition tends to be in your body. Insecurities tend to come from the mind. We talked about in the present versus in the past. Intuition, you tend to feel very present, whereas insecurities, you tend to look back and they're coming from somewhere behind you. Judgment about him versus judgment about yourself. I'm not sure if we fully touched on that, but most of the time with intuition, as you said, you're very aware. You're making conclusions from watching his behavior, whereas insecurities tend to come from a place of judgment about yourself. What if he leaves me? What if she hits on him? What if I'm not good enough? We talked about how you tend to be more curious and you're more like almost a detective. You feel very aware with intuition, whereas insecurities tend to blind us and just want us to go, boom, fight or flight. Any sort of final thoughts on that one, Clayton? Things you wanted to add? 2.
One, and I don't think we mentioned this, it's another way of saying something on the list, but insecurity usually comes with a story. There's typically some big story around it, where intuition comes with
great point.
Kind of a deeper knowing. And you might not have a story attached to it. It's just a feeling. So if it's got a big story attached to it, that might be a sign that it's an insecurity. So it's important to get present to that story. What is that story telling you? What kind of judgments about yourself does that story have? And that can help you also uncouple these two and see them more clearly.
Love it.
And one more piece, man, just to close things out, because with this one, and this is related, Mark, to some conversations we've had in the past. It's another reason that you and I connect. A way to begin to foster a territory in your life where you are letting go of insecurity, especially in dating, is to not play games with guys. Don't create a schism within yourself to where you are manipulating or playing games, because the minute you start doing that and you start separating from yourself, there's this gap that gets created where that insecurity can start to come in, and you're not going to know whether you're having an intuitive hit or whether you're being insecure because you're not connected to yourself. So one of the reasons, right? It's like, don't play games. Have integrity. Work on being the best version of you. That is enough. That is enough, because
absolutely love it. And yeah, this is why I brought Clayton on, because that's just one of the best pieces of advice you'll ever hear is once you start playing games with men, you're going to be insecure the whole time that they're playing games with you. Beautiful. And men are going to sense that, men are going to play back, and you're going to get stuck in this weird, inauthentic realm where you're just trying to outgame each other, and it becomes the basis of your dating and relationships as you move forward, and it's messed up. Like it's fucked.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. If you're on your authentic line and you're able to say, yep, I'm keen to see you, and not playing any games, and you're not going to keep doing that to a guy who doesn't reciprocate it, but you're able to be open, you're able to be vulnerable, you're able to communicate to a guy that you want him to step things up and that you're into it, and then he doesn't, or then he doesn't text for 3 days, it makes things pretty clear from your end. Whereas if you're playing pretend games where you're hiding your interest and then he starts hiding his interest, it's like where the fuck are you?
Totally. Yeah. You don't know your butt from your elbow. Absolutely.
Exactly. Great advice. Yeah. So yeah, wonderful point to round that question off from Clayton. Shall we move on to the next one, Clayton?
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. So we'll go a couple of comments. We've got Amber says, "Hey everyone." Laura's online. Laura says, definitely agree. Intuition is always there, but insecurities come and go. Step back and see how things play out. Fonda says, you're wonderful at your job. Good answer. Bonnie says, yay, I love this guy. Both guys are great as hell. Hell yes to no games. Love it. And that's really what we're building, with our channels. That's absolutely why, I wanted this guy on and why I'll go to his channel. Make sure you do subscribe to his channel as well. After this, check out his videos. They're fantastic. So go over and have a look at those afterwards. Let's go. Octana has an interesting point. She says, no contact rule is playing games. 2, you can't avoid games 100%. Octana, I actually disagree here. What do you think, Clayton?
Yeah, I disagree as well, because I don't think that it's the action itself. I think it's the intention in which you are implementing the action. So what I mean is
intent is huge.
Yeah, look, I mean, I made a video on this earlier about should you play hard to get, and I made the distinction, and I think we've talked about this, Mark, is that a high quality woman is just hard to get. She's not playing hard to get.
Doesn't need to play, or she's just being.
She's just being. Right. And so the way that I see no contact is not to have a result on the guy. No contact is to have a result on your perspective, so you can take a step back and become more empowered and see things more clearly. It's not to manipulate somebody. And if you're doing it to manipulate somebody, then it is a game. And so that's
for the wrong reasons. Exactly.
Right. That's the thing to check. That's the thing to track. What is your intention? Not what are you doing?
Yeah, I love that. I've come back to that on a few videos and going, even things like sex on the first date, even things like, okay, I'm going off to work on myself. What's your intent? Are you doing it for you? Or are you doing it to get some reaction from him? Yeah. If you're going away, if the guy has said, hey, I want nothing more to do with you, then you've got to respect yourself. And you're going to go, okay, I need to reset myself, my emotions. I need to step back. And if we are going to be friends, I'm going to need a break to split my emotions and do that. I'm going to go away and look after myself. Therein, I'm going no contact to look after myself.
Boom.
It often has the secondary effect of making the guy miss you, but that's not why you do it. You do it because you're taking care of yourself. If you're doing it to make a guy miss you, it's for the wrong reasons.
Yes, and Mark, you distinguished this point so well in your video, telling good dating advice versus bad dating advice. You said, I think it was point number 4, I think was you put it so eloquently. What did you say? I think you said that good dating advice does not try to create negative feelings in a man directly.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly right. You never set out to give a man negative emotions. Yes, sometimes it will happen as a side effect of you taking care of yourself and looking after yourself and being a high self-respecting woman, but that's not the reason you're doing it. You're doing it to look after yourself and respect yourself. And if a man feels negative emotions and misses you because you're fucking awesome, well, that's his thing to come and miss you. But that's not the intent behind it. Mark Manson talks about this a lot. Intent is everything. And if your intent is right, and this is why, Clayton, I don't know what your thoughts on this, but I often say, look, have sex for your own reasons. If you want to do it on the first date, do it on the first date. If not, don't do it on the first date. Whereas something like nude photos, sending to a man that you're not committed to and haven't slept with, it's a lot harder to have a clean intent in that area, because you can have sex with someone for your own reasons and, hey, I just want to enjoy this. Whereas sending someone nudes the intent is usually, I want attention, I want a reaction from him. It's usually wanting something from him as opposed to just doing something for your own reasons.
That's such a good point. And I haven't heard it distinguished in that way, but that's totally true. I mean, it's so much harder. Like, what is really the intention of sending nude photos except, is it to connect with the person? Where sex on the first date can be just an expression of the two of you really connecting emotionally, or connecting and having a good time, or blowing off steam. So yeah, I'm in alignment with that.
Always check your intent. Always check your intent.
Yeah.
Rebecca says, well said, Clayton. Erica says, don't play games with hurting each other. Absolutely. Let's get on to the second question. We're talking about dating a guy with depression. And this is a challenging one, because I get a lot of messages from women, and Clayton, you might find this as well, where it usually starts out, to be honest, as the depression word doesn't come up. It usually starts out as, hey, I'm seeing this guy. We've been going really well for 3 weeks, and then he's disappeared for 2 weeks. Or, hey, we're going so well for 6 weeks. We just committed, and now I haven't heard from him for 3 weeks. There's this hot, cold pattern, and I say, oh, that's weird. And we start to explore it. I go into it with my client, and they say, oh, by the way, he's got depression. And I sort of say, right, okay, all right, now the story's adding up a bit more. Is this something that you hear from your clients, Clayton?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I deal a lot with breakups, actually, a lot with women breaking up with guys, and men breaking up with women, and just breakups in general on both ends. I work with both men and women, and I've seen a lot of breakups happen because of depression, and because somebody begins to not believe in themselves, or lets themselves go and starts to slip.
Right. Okay. So as in, it didn't start depressed, but throughout the relationship it happened, and then that actually sort of killed the attraction for the couple?
Yeah.
Kind of what you said.
Yeah. There became a gap in the relationship somewhere, where they just started going different directions, or someone began to go unconscious in the relationship.
Okay.
And
what do you mean when you say unconscious?
Unconscious meaning that they're no longer really tracking what they are bringing to the relationship anymore. There's either like a loss of vision, there's a loss of respect for themselves, there's a loss of motivation, there's a loss of something, a loss, maybe a sense of self that begins to evaporate or disappear. And as a result of that, depression is just the next step. So I see that break people up all the time.
Okay. And did you want to? Well, we'll look through a bit of the dating stuff initially.
Yeah, let's do that.
And then we'll go into, okay, what do we do if someone's been in a relationship with someone? I have to admit, when I hear the stories that I sort of talked about before, I kind of, and then the woman says, hey, I think he's got depression, or he's having depressive episodes, I sort of hang my head a little bit, because these guys are very difficult. And obviously, depending on the severity, it can vary. But overall, there's some real challenges, especially in the early dating. Because one thing to be with someone and then have them go into depression, and Clayton, I think that's probably more your area. I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on that. Yeah. From a dating perspective, there's a lot of this hot and cold. There's a lot of this in and out and in and out. And I think one of the hardest parts, and we're going to talk about blueprints and love equals and things, but one of the hardest parts is it tends to, these guys are emotionally open, they're being vulnerable, and they tend to attract women who, want to connect and want to help them and really want to form a bond. And then the guy kind of goes away for 2 weeks and goes into his man cave, which is something men do, but it tends to happen a lot more regularly, and they tend to get a lot more distant with guys with depression. Look, from a dating perspective, I have to go, what's in the best interest of my clients and the woman who's giving me a call. And, the guy can have all the problems in the world. The guy can have X, Y, Z going on. My interest is going, okay, how does this relate back to you? How does this affect you? And we have to call a spade a spade. If a guy's being emotionally unavailable, depressed or not, then he's unlikely to make a good match. If he's investing 3 weeks out of every 6, then he's unlikely to make a good match. As opposed to being in a relationship where you can support him more through this process. And yeah, Clayton, you're brilliant with this. Brilliant. So you're going to talk about this. In dating, it's not really your role to kind of support him through it. I mean, you can certainly, if he's connecting with you and opening up, then that's great. And you can talk to him about it and give him some healthy reframes and things. But it is his responsibility And that's very important to remember, because a lot of women sort of come to me and they go, okay, how do I help this guy? How do I fix him? How do I get him to love me consistently? And I sort of say, he has to love you consistently on his own. I mean, this is his thing, and you can certainly be supportive and offer him these reframes, but you've got to judge a man on his actions. You've got to call a spade, you know, no matter what's happened to him. If he's investing 3 weeks out of every 6 in you, he's not a good match until he can invest 6 out of 6. It's a fact. And as much as we'd love to make it work, if the guy's in and out, you have to judge a man on his actions. One of the core concepts of, you know, my upcoming book is you have to invest in men who invest in you. That's just such a rule of dating, is invest in the guys who are investing in you first and foremost. They're the ones that are going. If you filter in all those guys, then yeah, you might not have the hotties who put in no effort, but there's going to be some hotties up here as well. And that's when you can filter the cream of the crop from the guys that are putting in the effort. And if he's depressed, if he's a player, if he's a narcissist, whatever it is, if he's not putting in the effort, then you can't just be throwing all your beautiful effort and love and support and companionship and sex at him to a guy who's not going to return those emotions back. The other point I just wanted to quickly touch on is the point of SSRIs. And this is one of the issues with depression that doesn't really come up with any other types of men, is that if you're on long-term, especially selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, what they're going to do, and everyone knows, scientists will all know this, is if you're keeping your serotonin levels in the cleft high, it's going to keep your dopamine levels down. It's going to decrease the ability, literally the ability, of someone to fall in love romantically. And with the dopamine levels not as high, dopamine levels tend to drag up testosterone, so testosterone levels aren't going to be as high. You can't have one thing without this chain going on. With the testosterone levels not as high, his sex drive's not going to be as high, his orgasm threshold's going to be higher. In other words, it's not going to happen as often. And that means you're not going to get releases of oxytocin and vasopressin from sex, which means you're not going to be as connected. In other words, these drugs do literally inhibit, to sometimes not very much, sometimes an extensive amount, a man's ability to love and want you sexually and then connect. And all of these things mean the guy is just more emotionally unavailable. So this is something to think about. It's not to say that, you know, obviously there's plenty of people who are on SRIs who have great relationships, but it's something to be very aware of, especially if you're meeting a guy who's in that sort of dating phase and he's emotionally unavailable, has been on these drugs for a long time. It is going to dull the dopamine response in his brain, which leads, you can't change one thing without it kind of stacking forward into other chemicals in the brain. So that's a very real sort of, you know, scientific consideration.
That's great.
Clayton, I've been going on a bit of a rant here. Do you want to have a chat about sort of more in relationships and further along?
And let me just comment on something you said. I think you really, I love how you brought in the science there, because if for anybody watching, like what Mark is doing right there is, I really see it. It's communicating, have proper expectations. Have proper expectations. Know what you're getting into.
That's nicely summed up.
Right? Yeah. I mean, if you're dating a guy that's got depression and he's on antidepressants, I think it can be natural human instinct to take personally someone else's inability to connect with you, someone else's inability to orgasm, inability to fall in love. And suddenly you start taking it personally and thinking, oh God, there's something that I should be doing differently. What Mark's just revealed is he's opened up the hood for you to see that it's like, wow, if I'm going to enter this territory with a man, there's going to be some disconnect, and I don't have to blame myself or feel like I have to do more to change him, which I think is just, it's
great. So nicely summed up. Love it. Yeah. Love it.
Beautiful, man.
Great. Did you want to talk about, what if you're in a relationship and the guy has sort of come with it?
Yeah. So I've worked with people in the past that have been in relationship with somebody who suddenly has fallen into depression, and it can be really difficult. It can be really difficult because the pressure that it puts on the relationship can be an incredible strain that can cause people to break up, like I was saying earlier. And this could be an entire video that we make on this. So I'm going to hit just some of the key points here because it is deep, and I know that we've been on for about 40 minutes now. But I will say this: the question that I have for you is, if you are in a relationship with a guy like this, how do you hold it? When you see him as being depressed, is it something that you think you need to fix? Is it something that you are resisting? Is there some type of emotion that maybe he's holding on to that you feel too uncomfortable to go there with him? And this is if the guy's not clinically depressed, but perhaps maybe he's having some low point in his life. I think that a lot of women and a lot of men have conditioned themselves to only want to feel positive emotions. And that if suddenly these negative emotions come up, there's no space in their life for it. So there's almost this rejection of it and thinking, oh, something's broken, something needs to change. But if we look at it that way, we miss an opportunity to truly create deep intimacy with our partner. I'm a firm believer that why we get into relationships is so we can feel loved and accepted and be seen in our weaknesses and be seen in our strengths and still loved and not be forced to change. And if you want your man to be inspired, if you want your man to find his strength and his will to pull out of a spiral, the first thing that you've got to do is accept him exactly where he's at and to love him exactly where he's at and stop fighting it, stop resisting it. Because the more that you do that, the more you actually add flame and fire and this heat to already what might be burning him up. And it's going to make him want to pull away from you. It's going to make him feel not accepted on a deep level because he feels like he'll feel inadequate. And men leave women when they feel inadequate because they don't want to face the accusation that they have in their mind that they're not good enough. So the more that you can be, and that does not mean fix him. That does not mean save him or rescue him. It means, can you be there with him in his pain and perhaps love him there? And that doesn't mean do therapy with him, but it just means to not take his maybe anguish personally, that you have to change it, but rather be there and love him and listen and support in whatever way you can. That's not saving or fixing. That is the best chance of helping somebody actually be able to move forward and find their strength. That's what enables them to find their best self. And it might be the thing that he needs to maybe get some help and some therapy and really find his strength, because he knows that maybe there's someone who's even close to him that believes that he can do it and isn't making him wrong for what he's feeling. So that's what I got on that.
Yeah, fantastic. I really like that. And that's Clayton's experience there. So he's worked with a lot of sort of situations where this has occurred. And I think that's wonderful advice. It's sort of, I guess, would you summarize Clayton by saying, look, accept him where he is, support him through it, but it's still his thing to fix himself.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yes, it is his journey. He is possibly on his own spiritual journey right now. And maybe you are too, being in a relationship with him. And part of that is actually learning to expand your own capacity to be with negative emotions and being able to sit with it and not try to change it, not try to fix it, but be with it.
Let's touch briefly on blueprints or love equals, because this kind of is more of a general thing of women who attract men who are in these situations. And if you're out there and if you're finding, hey, I keep attracting guys who are freaking sad and in this depressive state, this is something that's going to be important for you. Clayton, you refer to it as love equals. I sort of talk about the blueprint. They're basically similar concepts. And it's all about upbringing and how we've learned to define love. Blueprint of love equals. Do you want to talk about a little bit about that concept?
Sure. Yeah, I'll open it up, and then I'd love to hear your. I think you put it eloquently the other night, the blueprint stuff. So essentially, this love equals equation that comes from my side of the training that I've gone through is that whatever happens to you as a child, whether you've been abandoned, whether you've been abused, whether you've been dominated, whether you've been victimized, whatever happens to you as a child, we equate that with love. And then the unfortunate part is we forget that that's what we did.
We forget that that's our equation. Yeah.
We forget that that's our equation. And then we go on in life, and suddenly that is the choreography that we know how to survive. It is the dance that we are familiar with. It feels like home. And then we get into relationship and we teach people how to treat us the way that is congruent with that version of love. And so I mentioned something about going unconscious, and I think that part of learning how to be in a relationship and really having success in dating is learning how to wake up to your own programming. So that's the gist of it.
Yeah, I love this, and this is something I work through with specific clients, not every client, and we work through and we trace back to go, okay, ages 2 to 10. What were your definitions of love? So let's say, for example, mum and dad were great together, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, there was a divorce and maybe dad disappeared. And it would be easy to then go, love doesn't tell me things, love is dishonest, and then it disappears. Because that, as a child, we're an open slather. We just go, okay, whatever is, that's what becomes love. Our brains learn to define that. So dad was a rageaholic who controlled mum with anger. Well, we're going to go, okay, love is very controlling. That would be a simple example of it. We're going to attract relationships in our adult life where we go, love is controlling. Now, on a simpler sort of, or maybe not even simpler, on a kind of different wavelength, if you, as a child, for example, mum and dad were really busy, but they gave a lot of love and attention. Hey, you did the dishes. Oh my God, that's amazing. Or take it a step further, mummy's feeling really down. You were like the light in mum's life. Like your mum was sad a lot, but every time you showed up, it's like mum brightened up for you. What's the role that we take? What's the love equals there? We go, okay, love equals I cheer it up. That's how I get love. It's when I'm giving, when people are responding to me, and I'm being that kind of light in the room and brightening people's day. That's when I feel most at home. The human brain has a phenomenal ability to chase the devil it knows as opposed to the devil it doesn't. And even in controlling scenarios, even in physically abusive scenarios, we will go to those because they're comfortable and because we know them, unless we, as Clayton calls it, wake up and consciously chase something else. So Clayton, you made a brilliant point yesterday. In a lot of these scenarios where we've got our self-esteem and our love growing up from brightening people's day, especially, if our parents were depressed or if we had someone who was sad around us and relied on us to pick them up, that becomes the pattern we chase in our adult relationships. And we start going, okay, I get most loved and I feel most valued. God, I love it. I feel so good when I'm brightening everyone's day, when I'm picking people up. And if you were brightening up your mum and your dad, this is very common. But then the problem is you go to your adult relationships and you find men whose day literally needs brightening. And that's where you feel most at home. But the problem is that these men have learned along the way that depression gives some sort of reward for them. They wouldn't do it if there wasn't some sort of psychological reward at a very subconscious level. And in a lot of cases, that reward is love and or sympathy. So you get a guy that goes, okay, I have a pattern where I feel like this, and then certain women will come along and love me and give me love. And then there's the same women who come along and go, okay, I feel great when I'm brightening someone else's day. And these two attract. The problem is they're both feedback loops on each other and neither actually gets resolved. It's like if a dog barks and you go and pat the dog and give it love, the dog just wants to bark more. And so endless love, it doesn't necessarily fix depression. It's not the same. He has to fix himself is the point that I want to make clearly here. And Clayton, you made a brilliant point yesterday, which is if in extreme examples of this, it's like if the guy is happy, what's my purpose? Oh, everyone's happy around me. I don't have anyone to quote unquote fix or make happy. How do I exist? What's my purpose in a relationship where the guy is already happy? That feels really uncomfortable. I'm going to find the guy that needs fixing.
Yeah. And it happens unconsciously. It happens. Yeah. And I think you put it really well when you said that, what do you say? We'll chase down the devil that we know versus the devil that we won't. Was that you said?
The devil we know versus the devil we don't. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I love that. And it's so true. And I think that it's really hard to even add anything to what you said, because you did a great job with examples. And it's like, I see it in my own life, right? I see some of the devils that I've had to begin to defamiliarize myself with in order to get to a place where I'm more intentional about the partners that I choose, more intentional about how I'm showing up, noticing my triggers, noticing where I'm going unconscious or responding to an insecurity, right?
Yeah.
And allowing that to dictate my choices.
And to give you an idea at home of what I sort of take clients through, I'll have them trace back their previous relationship choices, and we'll look for patterns as part of the Blueprint program. And when we see these patterns, we will go, okay, what are the early warning signs? What were the first signs of this controlling behavior or this victim behavior or this narcissistic behavior, whatever it was in previous partners? And we use that as a checklist when we're out dating for future partners. So no exclusivity. It's like we've had an autopilot that's been flying us straight to Syria, straight to somewhere we don't want to go, and we need to understand the warning signs that we're flying back to that place. And while we're recoding that, manually fly the plane away so that we're watching these warning signs.
Yep.
So yeah, Clayton's brewing at that stuff as well. So you definitely make sure you have a look at his channel. Clayton, shall we answer a couple of chat questions before we jump off?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got a couple minutes.
Quick one. What have we got? Clayton, amazing answer on relationships and depression. Being with the negative emotions, acknowledging them, accepting them instead of pushing them away reminds me of ACT therapy. Yeah, that's absolutely. And if you're always running from negative emotions in life, that's when you do resort to things like drugs. That's when you do resort to things like avoidant behavior, getting out of situations. Negative emotions are a fact of life. Mark Manson talks about this a lot. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Can't recommend that book enough. Great book. What have we got? We've got Arctana says, please don't delete the broadcast. Can you please comment on guys with fetishes? My ex had tens of fetishes. He's the sweetest person, but these fetishes were overwhelming. That's an interesting question, isn't it? Can you comment on guys with fetishes? So obviously there's going to be lots of guys with lots of different preferences. Is this something you've sort of had experience with, Clayton, in terms of coaching? If one guy has a lot, I mean, you've got to do what you're comfortable with ultimately, and that's going to be a compatibility issue if you're not comfortable with certain things and he wants certain things.
That's what I would say. Yeah, compatibility for sure. And if it's getting in the way of the connection, if it's getting in the way of the emotional connection, then it might be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, if you're comfortable I always say, if you're comfortable to try new things, try it. But if it's not for you and it's a strong value for him, I want to do these fetishes. The fact is there's just going to be incompatibilities there, and you'll have to decide with him if those incompatibilities are strong enough to break off the relationship, or whether you can work through them.
Yeah.
Other questions. An ex tried contacting me, but I know when he does this, it's because he needs attention. How can I let him know I'm not the girl who's going to put him on a pedestal? So Cynthia says, ex tried contacting me, but I know when he does this, it's because he needs attention. How can I let him know I'm not the girl who's going to put him on a pedestal? Any thoughts, Clayton?
Well, it's kind of difficult to answer without the background, but it sounds like there's an interesting assumption that's being made here, Cynthia, that because he's contacting you, it means that he wants you to put him on a pedestal. I'm sure that you've got a valid reason for that. And it might be, here's the deal. If you are not completely sure what his intentions are, then it might be worth a straight conversation with him to connect as just two people and get a little bit more clear about what's actually going on. However, if you've already placed this guy in somebody that you don't want to necessarily be in contact with, it might be important that you just have a boundary around it and be a little bit more business-like and formal in terms of your responses. Also, there might not be a need to let this guy know that you're not going to put him on a pedestal. Just simply don't put him on a pedestal rather than even letting him know that.
Exactly. I'm not putting you on a pedestal basically says you're insecure that that he thinks you're putting him on a pedestal. Whereas I always say, what would your best self do? If you're really, you don't want to connect this guy, if you're done with it, then you just probably wouldn't respond, honestly. I talk about limited contact, which is a kind of a sort of a pleasant, respectful contact where, an ex can contact you and you'll reply respectfully, you'll reply politely, but you don't continue the conversation. You don't initiate your own conversations either. So he might say, hey, yeah, how you doing? Da, 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 da. And you might say, yeah, I've been really well, thanks. I hope you're well too. Subtle, ends the conversation, polite, respectful, but also makes clear, okay, we are going back into dormant mode here. I'm going off and looking after myself.
It sounds like a great opportunity to practice boundaries.
Yeah, actually, great point. Great point. Let's have a look. Any other questions? Let's have a look. Susan says, what was the name of the book? The name of that book was Mark Manson, Susan, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Great book. I have a lot of my clients read it. We've got Margin says examples of fetishes, e.g. findom, so financial dominance, rape roleplay. Is it healthy for a relationship? Margin, I would say it comes down to the individual relationship and what you're comfortable with. What's going to be healthy for one relationship is not going to be healthy for another. So you've got to kind of decide what you're comfortable with. Obviously, some of these are more extreme fetishes, and it might not be something you're comfortable with. So yeah, you've got to decide what's within your sexual comfort zone. You might be open-minded. You might give it a roll. There's nothing wrong with trying something, being open-minded about it. But if you're not comfortable with it after that, then again, it's going to come back to compatibility. Would you have anything to add to that, Clayton?
Yeah, I would just say too, continue to track trust and respect. Where are trust and respect in this equation? Because look, you can be as freaky and as crazy as you want, and if you've got trust and respect there as the foundation, you've got the container to hold a lot of things. But if the trust and the respect are being compromised by the fetish, it might be something to be looking at, and that might be determining whether it's healthy or not.
Agree. I love that. Great point. Let's see. A couple more. We've got Arctana says how to. Oh, I think we might have already answered that one. How to deal with a guy that is depressed if you want to get back together with your ex after several years apart, and he regrets attempts of getting close romantically, besides giving him space. So how to deal with a guy that is depressed. If you want to get back together with your ex after several years apart, and he regrets and he rejects attempts of getting close romantically, besides giving him space. Arctana, it sounds like you're investing pretty hard in someone who has been away for a few years and is not showing any signs of, wanting to reinvest in you. And I would probably ask, particularly if he is depressed and he is going through stuff, is this a guy that's going to be able to give you the loving connection, the investment, the actions into you that you really want? After a few years of being away and not investing in you and rejecting attempts of getting close again romantically, it doesn't sound like he may be the best guy for you to invest in right now. Clayton, your thoughts?
I like that. I think that tracking also how much is this guy actually investing is key. And notice where you may be compromising yourself in pursuit of this man. And that should be the limit. If you're feeling like at some point here, being in contact with him, being in communication, great. Okay. But if all of a sudden you start compromising yourself, you start almost feeling like you're trying to build up some debt by being nice to him, or you start to resent who you're being in pursuit of this, it's time to put the brakes on.
Yeah, great. I like that answer a lot. Really good. What do we think? We've got Christine says following their ex on social media and liking their posts. Still good or bad? Afraid it shows he's not over her, maybe. If they're following their ex on social media and still liking their posts, afraid it shows he's not over her. What do you think, Clayton?
Well, are you over them? Because I know that I've liked ex's posts on Facebook before, and I don't really care what it communicates because I know where I'm at. And if I know that I'm not over the person, then I probably won't do that. And if I am over them and I feel comfortable doing it, and it's again, my intentions are not to do it because I'm trying to create a reaction on them, but rather I'm doing it because it's an expression of me just being happy and appreciating their posts.
Damn.
Cool.
I've noticed that actually. If it's straight after without the no contact, I think it's much more likely to be. I still want to be on their mind. I still want to trigger that person. If there's been that no contact gap, and then they come back later on, I think a lot more commonly that's an appreciation. But Clayton absolutely nailed it. It's going to come from you and your intent, and that self-honesty. Why are you doing it? Always come back to intent.
Right. By the way, I just want to say too, it is shifting from being externally focused to being internally focused and really tracking yourself rather than tracking the other person. Tracking yourself in the sense of what are my intentions? And I know that's not necessarily easy in this situation when you've got emotions tied up and perhaps you love the person and maybe that they broke up with you. So I want you to know that I have a lot of compassion for what's happening. And I know that the answer is not necessarily clear all the time. It is simple when you get clarity, but when you're in the middle of it, it can be difficult. So I just want to recognize that and express the acknowledgement for what you're going through right now, because it's not easy. I know that.
Yeah. Beautiful comment. It can be really hard to see. What is it? It can be hard to see the forest from the trees.
Yes.
And when you're in there, it can just be, you can't get clear on your own. You can't get clear on your own motive sometimes.
Right.
And that is when sometimes it's best to go, look, I'm just going to leave this for a week or maybe a month and just reassess because I need to get some clarity. I know for me, it takes me a long time. I usually can't process things in a month. It usually takes me several months to go, well, what happened there? And I'll take several months away just to go, okay, I need to, where are my feelings at with this? So everyone's different. And obviously, depending on the connection, you're going to have different processing times. Sometimes it's good to just take a step back.
Yep.
Okay, we'll take 2 more questions. What have we got? We've got one, best way to meet guys from Donna. Donna says, what's the best way to meet guys? Donna, there's all sorts of creative ways to meet guys, and it's really about what can we do with your schedule, or what can you do with your schedule? I'll take clients through this. Everything from, heading out, meeting them. I have everything from obviously online to heading out, meeting guys in public, day and night, meeting guys at races, classes, talk about hobbies and interests, mixed meetup groups. Single mixed sports is a great one as well. I always, it's great when clients are going, yep, I'm online dating, I'm going on 3-4 dates a week. But if you can also nail a singles meetup group and meet 20 guys in 2 hours, you're just filling your life up with men. And you never want online to be a crutch. You never want it to be the only way you have of meeting men. If I can get a client, if she's making eye contact, I've got one of my clients, Jade, and she's getting really good at meeting guys in the street, in elevators, in food courts. Once you can do that, total freedom and abundance. You can get the guy to approach you, or tools to meet them anywhere, day or night, and suddenly the entire world opens up to you. What are your sort of thoughts, Clayton?
Well, I just love what you just said. That what I'm hearing you say is when you begin to really practice the skills necessary to be able to be a social person and start conversations, you can meet men literally anywhere. Yeah, you can meet men literally anywhere. Literally. And if I was just going to add one more piece, maybe emphasize something you said, passion and interests.
Yes.
Yeah. Find a place, find something that you really love doing, because if there is an activity that you love that brings out your brilliance and your vibrancy as a woman, you will be a shining light in that, and you will just attract men so much more easily. So I'd say that follow your passion. What are you passionate about? What brings you joy? And then look to those areas.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. There's lots and lots of ways out there. But always go, how can I meet more men rather than I can't meet men? Engage your creative brain and go, okay, what are my options to meet men? How can I add lots and lots of men? Just have men regularly around my life.
Yeah.
I will take one more. Let's see. We forgot one. What's one more question?
Mark, you're doing such a good job being a host, man. I love it.
Thanks, man.
I'm sitting over here. It's pretty easy for me. I can't even see the chat box.
Okay, we'll take this one from Zara. So Zara says, I keep telling myself that I need a man in my life. I keep telling myself that I need a man in my life and that I can do everything on my own. I think maybe that's meant to say I don't need a man in my life and that I can do everything in my own. But deep down, I want to be in a healthy and happy relationship. How can I change this mentality? I keep telling myself that I need a man in my life and that I can do everything on my own. But deep down, I want to be in a happy and healthy relationship. Deep down, I want to be in a happy, healthy relationship. Look, I think it's part of a normal drive, Zara, to want to be in a healthy and happy relationship. That's part of, biologically, we're born to want to connect and we're born to want that. Clayton, what are your thoughts on this question? I'm not sure if I described it amply enough for you.
I think I got it. Whatever you were saying, I was feeling Zara in that moment. I was feeling Zara's heart, and I can feel I can feel the dichotomy of, on one side, it's like, look, I don't need a guy. I can be independent. I can do life on my own. And then this other part of her that's like, God,
I want a guy.
I want a guy. Yeah. I want a healthy, loving relationship. And I think, this is another one. It just goes so deep into this. And I think the key is learning what perhaps a healthy level of dependence looks like, and being able to trust that it is actually okay to depend on people. It is okay to begin to open and depend on a man. And that doesn't mean financially. That doesn't mean necessarily like he's cooking your meals or that he's buying you cars. I mean, depending emotionally in the sense of being able to like open up and really trust that you can lean on somebody and it's not going to scare them away. And that comes from getting more secure with yourself. So oftentimes this feeling of I don't need a man it's almost like a scab. It's like a reaction of I've been hurt before, so screw guys.
I won't be vulnerable.
I won't be vulnerable.
Independent. I don't need no man. Yeah. Nah, fuck it.
Yeah. Done. So this vulnerability piece, Zara, like that. Thank you for taking it there, Mark, because that is key. This idea of how can you get more in touch with your emotions, and how can you keep building up courage to express those emotions in a way that doesn't necessarily put blame on anybody, but it allows there to be a reflection of you. I know that's kind of conceptual, but that's what vulnerability is. Vulnerability is learning new modes of revealing yourself to men and to friends in relationship so they can support you, so they can feel your longing and your wanting. I think many women think that it's like, okay, I got to be tough and independent, otherwise a man won't respect me. And that's just not the truth.
Yeah, you still want to as a man, and this is where you hit that middle balance between I'm fiercely independent, I don't need no man, versus I'm totally dependent on a man for my happiness. Yeah. There's a happy middle ground there where it's like the man brings something to my life that no one else can, and at least no other women can. And that's when particularly if it's no one else can, that's when he feels truly valued and secure in that relationship. And it's not like need him, but it's like he has value to contribute that you can't just replace on a whim. Yeah. And a lot of the I'm fiercely independent, I don't need no man. It's when I talk to these women and when they really open up to me, I find it very common that they've really opened themselves up in the past. They've been vulnerable, they've fallen in love, and then they've been badly burned for it.
Yep.
And so they go, fuck that vulnerability, fuck doing that shit again. I'm just going to make a life where I don't need no man because men have hurt me and I don't want to go through that again. And so they go, okay, I'm fiercely independent. And that's not what it's about. You know, there will always be things that women can bring to my life that I'll never get from my buddies. There's always going to be there. And understanding, and this is where, you know, understanding the core differences between men and women is important. Because if you go, well, men and women are all exactly the same, then you go, well, why would I need men? I'll just have women. But the reality is they're not. There's an energy, there's a presence. There's certainly things women can bring to my life and a woman can bring to my life that I'll just never get from my buddies. That's just the way it is. And I don't, need that to exist. It's not like I'm going, okay, I need this energy in my life at all times or I'm not going to be happy. No, I can be happy without it. But I can also appreciate the fact that there's always going to be something the woman can add. And seeing men in this way going, look, I don't need men. I can be happy with men, but I'm also well aware that there's an energy that a man will bring to my life that women just aren't going to bring to it. He's just going to bring a different form of energy and a different form of fulfillment. It's not that I need it to be happy. And I think that's the important distinction. It's I can take care of my own self-esteem and I am on purpose. I'm following my passions. I'm living a happy life. That, do you know what? If a man didn't come into my life, I'd still be fucking fulfilled. I'd still be happy by the end of it because I've been living on purpose. But I'm also aware that there's an energy that they can bring in, and I'm excited to meet a man who can bring that energy along the way.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah.
Any sort of final thoughts, Clayton, before we log off today? Amber says, can we get a couple of smiles from you guys? It's been all serious topics, all serious business.
Yeah.
Anything...
I think just the last piece that I just have as you were talking is I've been badly burnt in the past. I've had my heart ripped out, stepped on, felt utterly destroyed. And I know that in me, when I was actually in that relationship, there was vulnerability, but there was also this lack of me honoring myself that was present. And that part of being in a relationship, part of dating is continually having the courage to open and open and open and allow yourself to possibly be in the face of this destruction over and over again. And I know that sounds scary, but a cell, this isn't a biology of belief. There's a book called The Biology of Belief that says a cell cannot protect itself and grow simultaneously. That if you're either protecting yourself from sickness or it is growing and open itself up to being hurt. And truly, that's what allows a relationship to grow, is opening up and trusting that no matter how painful it is, whatever pain you're going through, it's merely what carves you out to have a greater capacity to love moving forward. And if you reframe the pain that way, the possible pain you might feel, and stop making it wrong, but make it and see it as a tool that will only allow you to become a better, more actualized, self-aware, loving woman, then you can face dating in the unknown head on with courage, trusting that there is no failure, that there's only going to be growth from this. So that's what I got for a last thought.
Yeah, really good. We had a bit of a double up of the screen there.
I saw that. There was two of you that came on.
Going on. It's weird. Anyway, we've had a pretty successful broadcast overall, so I think with the tech's starting to fail us, we will leave it there. Clayton, this guy is sensational. Absolutely go and subscribe to his channel right now, and has great, authentic advice that's really, really strong. www.youtube.com/Clayton Olson Coaching, all O's in there. Head to that, subscribe. I'll put the link in the description so you can have a look. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure having you on here. Clayton, thank you so much for coming onto my channel.
Yeah, thank you, man. Absolute honor. I can't wait to have you on board over on my channel to talk about dating and go even deeper. It's been a total pleasure. The hour has just flown by. So thank you for having me, man.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for joining me out there and joining us. Great having you on. Great having this guy on.
Yeah, thanks for the questions.
And we'll do it again pretty soon.
Yep.
Great. I'll catch you later. Thank you, Lisa, Laura, Susan, Margin, Lizzie, Donna, Octana, Pixie, Christine, Rebecca, Donna, Susan, Rebecca, Bonnie, Erica, Zara, Laura, Amber, Fonda, Samantha, Diane. Thank you, all of you, for coming online. And we will see you very soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.